Now, in order to establish justice, Plato is suggesting a type of scheme of education apart from the idea of community of wives and property. And we know that all these things Plato is doing just to make life happy within a framework of philosophical idea of good and how good is to be achieved until either philosophers take over political affairs or politicians become philosophers. Now, one of the ways of making them philosopher is to suggest education system. Before we go to that education system, we need to remember that according to Plato, his ideal state has got four cardinal virtues: wisdom, courage, discipline, and justice. Why wisdom? Wisdom because its rulers were persons of knowledge, and courage because warriors were brave, and it will have self-discipline because of the harmony which is pervading the social metrics due to a common agreement as who should be ruling and who should not be ruling. And we know that justice is doing one's own job without interfering others. Now, in this entire scheme of justice, philosopher ruler is the one who is the center of his ideal state. In fact, his theory of philosopher ruler is linchpin to the idea of ideal state. He derived it from the conviction that philosopher had the knowledge, intellect, and training to govern. Now, who is a philosopher? In the Republic, this question emerges, and it is asked to Socrates, one of the characters in the Republic, which is the dialogue on good life, and Glucon is asking this to Socrates, that who is a philosopher? And Socrates makes it clear that a philosopher is one who loved wisdom and has a passion for knowledge and was always curious and eager to learn. When further clarification was sought, Socrates made it clear that a philosopher was one who loved truth. Now the question, why should a philosopher rule? Why should we believe in philosophers' rule? Plato tells us in the Republic that a philosopher has a good grip over the idea of good, and he was best qualified to rule. It implies that knowledge could be obtained only by a select few. And who are these few people? Those who had leisure and the material comforts. Plato is creating a sort of hierarchical society here, meritocratic society. He is trying to tell us that not everyone is suitable for knowledge. Now, he is not telling something new. He is sharing this Greek perception that leisure was essential for pursuit of wisdom. A philosopher would be able to administer justice and act for the good of the community. Again, Plato goes on telling a philosopher ruler will have good character, a calm disposition, sound mind, and he would have the qualities of ruler, namely truthfulness, high-mindedness, and discipline, courage. All these qualities a philosopher ruler will be possessing, and that's why he is entitled to rule. Apart from these qualities, Plato tells us that a philosopher ruler is not scared of death. He is a lover of truth, and he would be honest and forthright. He would not be petty or mean person. He is above physical and material pleasures, is devoid of emotional ties and economic considerations. He would be public spirited and wise. A philosopher ruler would be a wise legislator. He will be making laws, framing laws in accordance with the idea of good. All these things Plato is telling because he believes that statecraft was ultimately nothing but soulcraft. It links the political with the ethical. And for Plato, an ideal state ruled by the philosopher ruler was a divine institution, perfectly worthy of emulation and imitation. Now, what kind of education that philosopher ruler would be given? In Plato's scheme of ideal state, a philosopher ruler is made possible through an elaborate and rigorous scheme of education. He constructed this state around the scheme of education. Whether believe that if state is performing its task of conducting and supervising education properly, then there is no reason that it would not succeed. Now, he looked at education as an instrument of moral reform, moral transformation. It would be molding and transforming human souls. Education, according to Plato, inculcates the right values of selfless duty towards all, and that's why it is positive. It helps us in performing our functions in society and attaining fulfillment. It is the key to realizing the new social order. Plato devoted large portions of Book 2, 3, and 10 of the Republic. Now, the idea of community of wives and property was just confined to a few paragraphs at the end of Book 3. We can understand how seriously about the idea of education. And to highlight its significance and importance, one of the social contract theorists, Rousseau, has described the Republic as the finest treatise on education to be ever written. Plato has two-phased education scheme. First one is elementary education, and second one is higher education. We need to remember that Plato recommended a state-controlled, compulsory, and comprehensive scheme of education, in which elementary education would be confined to the guardian class till the age of 18. Once this age is completed and the education is accomplished through various ways of learning, then this scheme will continue for another 2 years with compulsory military training. It tells us that Plato has a scheme of elementary education till 20 years of life. Those who qualify after this, they will be going for higher education. Now, Plato is not making any distinction or any differentiation here. He is not making any difference between girls and boys. Both the girls and boys will be receiving the same education. He doesn't believe in physical distinction. Plato is prescribing here education at elementary level, which will consist of music and gymnastics, because he believes that it will train and blend the gentle and fierce qualities in the individual and will create a harmonious person. Gymnastics will keep your body fit, and music will be able to develop your nascent power of reason. It will inculcate the power of right opinion. Plato was in favor of censorship of literature and music. not to allow young minds to harmful ideas, was the one of the reason that Plato suggested censorship. Now, at the age of 20, a selection will be made, and those who are best fit, they will be going for advanced course in mathematics, which will include arithmetic, plain and solid geometry, astronomy, harmonics. He considered arithmetic as necessary, for it used pure intelligence in the attainment of pure truth. Truth for him resided in thought. We all know that he gave us the idea of good, around which he is constructing this entire scheme of ideal state. Arithmetic was useful for its use of numbers, and warrior was supposed to learn use of numbers in order to arrange the troops. Now, those who did not qualify to join this exclusive category, they will be becoming soldiers, and they will be forming the second tier of the ruling elite. The first course in the scheme of hierarchy education, we need to remember, will last for 10 years, and it will be for those only who had a flair for science. At the age of 30, there will be another selection, and those who qualify at this level, they will be studying dialectics or metaphysics, logic, and philosophy for next 5 years. They will be studying the idea of good and the first principles of being. They would receive partial experience for ruling, and in that capacity, they will be joining as junior military and political level officers at the age of 35. And this period will last for the next 15 years. So Plato has a detailed outline of education at each level. By the age of 50, the philosopher ruler will be fully equipped. He would be devoting his greater part of time to contemplation and philosophy, along with political obligation. Since he would have grasped the idea of good, he would be in a position to do good of the community. Now, apart from this, in order to get rid of the problems or the negativities caused by nepotism, factionalism, Plato is suggesting a scheme of community affairs and property where he is prescribing a common education, common living for guardian class. He is keeping this scheme to get rid of the personal problems faced by the ruling class. He abolished private family and property for the guardian class because he wanted them not to engage in nepotism, favoritism, particularism, and factionalism. For him, politics did not mean promoting one's personal interest. So this is the entire scheme of Plato's ideal state, wherein you have wisdom, courage, harmony, and justice, and then you will be experiencing happy life.